All right, guys, Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation back at you. This is about a 2-week update on the top BTC income funds, meaning that it's based on Bitcoin and they all pay distributions, dividends, income. They either pay monthly, every 28 days, which I still call monthly, or they pay weekly. So what do we have here? Let's look. And I'm going to deep dive this further. So look at my little cheat sheet over here. Yeah, one of them is a 2x. It does pay income and not bad, really. So, but it is different. So you can't compare its total return. You can, but in a bull market, it's going to win every time. In a bear market, it's going to lose, right? But it is an income fund. It is based on BTC. It just uses 2 times leverage. So I take that with a grain of salt. I usually don't tell you that's the best performing fund. Anybody with common sense had said, hey, I'm willing to bet that BTC is going to go up massively. Not only do I want income, but I want, massive growth. So I'm going to buy bid X, and I don't blame you. And then I have 2 color coded. These are large, Fidelity, iShares. They're what some of the income funds use as their underlying. Some use commodity futures, right? BTC itself on the commodity marketplace. And some use a combination of that with swaps. And so it's done differently in different income funds. Now, that having been said, one of the things that is always unfair, I did one, a couple weeks ago, and somebody said, well, Bruce, you had the start date of 6/4 on some funds. They didn't start 6/4. Well, duh. I told you in the video that I'm trying to do equal time, because if I show you 2 months and it's a bull market for BTC, and I show you a winner in that fund, and then I show you another fund that was in the bear and the bull market, how can it beat the statistics of total return for a fund that was only in the complete bull market? So what I do is I take all possible things. I go back and I say, what date can I get 80% of all the income funds at? And I can do that with 11.5. Now notice white over here. White means, okay, they're all positive, they're all paying, right? So all but 2 of the funds had NAV increases, what we call NAV increases, but basically the security, the income fund you bought also went up. And so we're using 11.5, but you notice there's a couple funds that are new. Well, they only started 5/1. So do we ignore them? No, 5/1 is 3 months of data. 3 months and a week now from Amplify, 2 of those. Then we had a 6/4. It's even newer. Now you're 2 months old. Global X, BCCC. And orange means it pays weekly. People love that. The other weekly payer is Roundhill, YBTC. I love Roundhill Fund. Okay. Neo's fund is a very good fund. Okay. So, and then you had XBitty, which now is a weekly payer. So I need to make that orange. It used to be a weekly payer. I'm sorry, it used to be a monthly payer, and now it is a weekly payer. Okay. So that is a very good fund. It sometimes have NAS erosion, but look at its distribution rate annualized. It pays massive distribution. Geomax is known as the king, but look, their fund, 66%, XBitty, 88%, but that's not even really fair because they're not on the same dates. So what am I going to do in a second? I'm going to take you over to my same date, and I'm going to give you a 5/1 start so I can get more funds in. Then I'm going to give you a 6/4 start so I can get everybody in there. And that's how I roll. Right? It's all about fairness. the best you can. Now, one of the issues you're up against, or I'm up against, before I give you some of this, even when I go to same date, if you have a weekly and monthly payer, and let's say it's 3 weeks into a month, and these weeklies have collected 3 weeks of income, sometimes what I'll do is I'll take the last monthly payment on the monthly guy and I'll say, take 3/4 of that for this month. Now, that may not be the real number. Let's say they paid 80 cents last month and they're going to pay $1 this month. So out of the 80 cents, if I take, a third or 3/4 of that, I can do that and add. And so, because I don't want it to be greatly skewed, if a weekly guy just has one more payment, and not a big deal because it's 1/4, or actually these 28-day payers like in Yomax, you calculate that as 4.3 times in a month, 4.3 payments. Somebody made a big deal in the comments about, hey, Bruce, you shouldn't call it a monthly. That really confuses me and upsets me. And because Max is 28 days. Well, you know what I told him? It upsets me when people say, I'm buying this fund because it pays twice a month. Well, guess what? It doesn't really pay twice a month, right? Let me explain. So if you have 28 days, you pay every 4 weeks, you have 13 months of income. And one of those calendar months will have two payments in it, like May 2nd and May 30th. So somebody, I'm buying, in late April because I want two payments. Well, guess what? You get paid every 28 days. It just happened to be that it coincided with being paid twice in that month. I know some people, and so to me, that's annoying because you're not looking at it for what it really is. But they could argue I'm not looking at it for what it really is two payments. But when I hear twice a month, I'm thinking bi-monthly, right? If it's twice a month all the time, that's a huge difference. So I get a chuckle out of that, guys. So anybody out there that's annoyed, toughen up, get over it, right? It's monthly. But I'll always tell you it's 28 days in my verbiage. And when I calculate the yield, I take that into consideration because I divide by 13 and not by 12, right? So I'm doing all the statistical data correct. All right. So what stands out here before I move? Well, you got to be careful because it's different date. But of the 11 fives, if I ignore the whites, well, the 2 times did better because guess what? Since 11/5/2024, the underlying, right, these guys that perform closer to Bitcoin but don't pay any income that we use, it's up 97%. Now, if you start paying income on top of that, sometimes you can beat it. What if you're 2x, right? If you're pure 2x and you don't have any NAV erosion, then you'd be, 194, right? You'd be close to 200. But 141 is good. So that's what you got to always consider. And again, I don't really consider these because you guys that follow my channel and talk to me, you're very income focused. And I get it. So I respond to that, and sometimes I'll say to you, it's better to buy the underlying. But, oh, Bruce, you don't understand, but I need income. So I catered myself to talk about it. 25% of my portfolio is in income funds, 75% is in growth and massive growth areas. But that's me. And when those massive growth areas get better income funds, I'll play a little bit more income fund. But I know how to extract a lot of money out of the market where I know they're undervalued and where growth is. Okay, guys. So I'm not going to beat this one up because it's just not fair. You'll have a chance. But I guess I should finish on the 11/5 stuff. So ones that stand, if I ignore the white ones, who's 81? Okay, Maxi. Maxi does good sometimes and doesn't. Its payments vary from 20 cents to $1. So it seems like it's inconsistent. It seems like it pays really big at the end of the year. I'm going to be watching it to go into Simplify in October, Maxi, to see if they continue what they've been doing in the past. Because if they're just going to pay a bunch of money out, now I know, before everybody jumps in the comment, I know all about the SEC rule. I know all about they have to pay 90% of the profits out. Otherwise, the fund gets taxed and pays taxes on that additional, profit. And that is incentive for them to flush out. But don't run around and think everybody's going to flush out with a lot of money. Last year, there were some big payments in December. Some of the funds paid twice in December. So it happens, but unless you know exactly what they're keeping, which they kind of keep close to the vest, even yield maxes, open as they've been about their trades and what appears to be what they're making, if you're smart enough, you can sort of figure it out, isn't what they always pay. They do a very subjective payment. And that frustrates me after doing all the work and all the accounting work to figure out what they're really earning only to be shorted. That's caused me to move out of some of their funds into other funds that don't seemingly hold back, I guess. And then like in Misty's case recently, it didn't really earn anything and they paid $1.18. Why? Because 35% of all assets under management, like 5 point something billion of their 17 billion is all in Misty. So you start dropping those payments, but guess what happens when you keep that payment up and they didn't earn it? The NAV erosion. So on the very last one here, I'm going to show you what Misty's done for the last 4 months. All you Misty lovers and goats and retire on Misty, I get hate mail. Oh, well, you don't understand. It's done this. Yeah, I understand. I was in it for 6 months. I covered it every single day for about 8 months. So I absolutely understand. Maybe you don't understand. Oh, you jump out of it just because it did poorly for 4 months. Well, don't I have the right to put my money where it's treated the best? If you want to keep losing money, hoping and praying it's going to return back to where it was, and it may. I don't have a magic solution. I just know the MSTR based funds right now aren't getting it done because MSTR is not getting it done. Will Michael Saylor and company return it? I hope so. I'm bullish on BTC. All right, guys, enough of my rants. Here we go. So they're all closer here. Remember, I'm going to do 2 more of these. I'm going to do 6.4, everybody at 6.4, and everybody that was around 5.1. Up here, I did everybody at 5.13 because I could, except for BCCC. Okay. So in blue, I highlighted who's good, who's really, the good ones. And these are indexes. I probably should just color the indexes a different. Guess what the yellow means? Now, before I added Maxi here, meant the bottom of the barrel. Well, now YieldMax YBIT got saved. I'm not a big fan of YBIT. If you're in YBIT, get another fund. Now, Maxi in this scenario on 513 didn't do as well, but it does most of the time. This really should be a red, right? Because it's negative. Well, its NAV was bigger than its payments. But again, it didn't include some of its last payment was $1, right? So your 6.4, it looks pretty good. It's 513 doesn't look so good, because you only had 25 cents and 35 cents in that scenario, and then $1. So Maxi, you got to pay more consistent. All right. So out of this, BCC, again, they started 6.4, so not completely fair. Let's see if they're a winner in 6.4. But other than that, the indexes, well, you expect a double to be there. And now you got Fidelity, one of the underlines. It's one of the few times that IBIT's not right there with FBTC. I can't really explain the discrepancy, right, of sort of an underlying index. It's an index kind of, okay, not a formal one. So anybody that owned FBTC during 513 to present did better than IBIT, and normally they're very close in total return. But remember, they don't distribute anything. Look at the numbers. They're both zero there. They don't pay. All right. So having said that on 513, I ranked them in order of top to bottom. Okay, if we exclude the index, and then we say the double, we exclude that, why BTC 49. Now we got BCC, but they kind of had an unfair advantage. Let's see how they rank when they're stacked right on the same date. XBitty, Granite shares, that just turned weekly, was monthly prior. Now, one of the things you notice, they're one of the highest payers, period. I jumped into their COYY. I got a bunch of NAV erosion, very small position. Normally, when these things come new, and I was a little suspicious of Granite, so I bought just a minimum amount, no big deal. But it's down, on the NAV side, the payment's awesome. Okay, so XBitty, right, from Granite, nice, 76% annualized yield. Okay, based on what they've done since 513, but they've had NAV, okay? Who hasn't had NAV, right? A lot of them. So you got 49, you got 47 from your weekly pairs. They have a slight advantage here. They may have an extra payment in or something, okay? BPI from Grayscale. I didn't even have any of the Grayscales in here. And then somebody wrote in after I did a few of these things every few weeks and said, hey, can you? Actually, they gave me BPI and another one, but the other one didn't pay any income. So I want to keep payers in here for you guys. So IBIT was 40.66 and BPI from Grayscale was 40.38 with a almost even. They had an annualized distribution of 1848 and a gain loss annualized of 2190. Again, on 85 days, that's going to change. It's going to go way up or go way down. Very likely, then it's not going to stay the same. So amplified, Biddy and Baggy, they're good ones. Sometimes they're really at the top. Sometimes they're in the middle of the pack. I like them both. Okay. Again, sort of even. This one, Baggy pays more, right? And if you go study it, you'll see one targets a higher income level. The one that targets less income is saying, "Hey, we get a higher upside in growth." And look at it, that's true. So Biddy got 40.07 with 22% yield and almost 18% gain. Whereas you got the 28% yield in Baggy with the 11% increase in the underlying. This is a good one too, BTCI from NEOS. I like NEOS funds in general. Um, this is Grayscale. Is this Grayscale? I don't know. I didn't think it was. I may have. Yeah, it is. Okay. BTCC, competitive in payments, but not so good in the NAV. Okay. But we're going to look at more dates. Let's see who stacks up. I got Bitto. I like Bitto. Now, Bitto didn't look particularly good here. This 513 is not a good look for it. So I learn all the time, and people say, well, why do you do so many? Because I want to and I can. I'll tell you where you find things. I do this all the time in other facets in growth stock. I catch things that are trending and I'll compare 700 different, stocks in a sector or something. I'll look at them at 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. And if I find somebody that's doing really well at the weekly level, at the daily level, and the monthly level, and they have good long-term statistics too, I'm like, okay, something's going on here. They're really good. If I see somebody that's been average to poor for 6 months and 12 months, and all of a sudden the last 3 months, now I'm digging into fundamentals. Why? What's going on? Have they gone from losing money to making money in their earnings? Sometimes you catch that shit. Well, I want more. So very powerful what you can do with data if you know how to look at the data and how to use the data. Okay, again, Ybit just horrible. Just does not compete anymore. Okay. So let's look at the two more. So we do 5-1, and every once in a while I drop somebody out. It wasn't done on purpose. I went back now since 2 weeks ago and added a bunch in here. I wanted YBit in here because it wasn't in this one. It was in the next one and the other one, and it's looking better. To Yomax credit. So what are the high now? Everybody's the same. So who's the winner here? Well, I don't have my sort function on this small subset. Normally I build a table and I can build the whole, and I can sort this in any way, shape, or form and filter by all the the columns. But it starts adding a lot to do that. If this ever gets really big and it doesn't all fit and I can't keep the top up there, then I will. So that's why you could say, well, why don't you just sort it? Then I can see, well, it's a lot of extra work to gain a small thing over, 3, 6, 9, 10. Yeah, no, 9. So 60. BCC from 6-4 on is a winner, 60% return. I don't consider it a winner if somebody's 57 and 60. That's a pick 'em, right? Pretty good, 34% distribution annualized. Guess who was here? Look at Bitto. That's because Bitto just paid $1.20 on 7-1. Or sorry, it declared on 7/31, and I think it actually pays on 8/7. I've owned it for a couple of years, so I'm familiar with Bitto pretty well. I like it. It hasn't even gotten back sometimes on the NAV, but it pays and it pays well. So in this scenario, got a 12. I don't like that, right? You got 3 of them. Look at Granite. Look at Granite's pay from 6-4. It's not the top fund, but I highlighted all the 40% payers. Remember, everybody's the same over here. Everybody's 6-4. So you got a winner in BCC, 35 and 25, or 34 and 26 to get to 60. But you got 82.55. Now, if that was the winner by 20 points, I can even live with a 35-cent NAV erosion if I get consistent. If that's an annualized number and it's 82.55 and minus 35, I'll take it if nobody else can compete, right? It's all about competing. I vote with my feet. I move my money to where it's treated best, guys. So BCC, 60%er. Love it. When you see green on both, that's a good sign. Now, granted, it's only 6-4. We're talking 2 months. Even the 31s and the 35s, the biddy and the baggies, look at Roundhill. It's really in third place here. XBiddy is beating it, but I still don't. In that case, I'd probably just stick with Roundhill. They're both weekly. Otherwise, I give it to the one that's weekly, probably because I give my money sooner. I can deploy it. I can reinvest. I buy something. I rarely ever drip. Too old for that. Okay. So 44% on YBTC, an excellent fund. 42% on Bitto. Own both of these. All right. Maxi, it's come back up, and this has dropped, but not enough. Let's see how they do later. Neos, oh yeah, you're a 40%er. That's looking good. Max 31, but almost everybody's ahead of you. The only one you really beat is Simplify. All right, let's go to this. This may make you angry if you're a Misty owner. So you're saying, well, Bruce, why do you show Misty in there? It's not written on BTC, but most of you know, indirectly it is. And it used to always beat them, right? What is MSTR's claim to fame? It owns the largest amount of Bitcoin on any company in the world. It's got a massive amount of Bitcoin in the billions, right? Net worth of what the Bitcoins are worth. But so as a holder, it's unprecedented. Maybe it's caught up to MSTR because guess what? It's not like Bitcoin's that far off its highs. 114, it's been 120. No, normally see that with Misty and MSTR. Misty's problem is MSTR. It's not just Misty. It can only do so much. But look at this. Since 5/1, that's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and a week. Minus 168 total return. We're used to seeing 80%, 100%. This, people tell Bruce, you don't understand. It got all its money back and Yield-Max and 70% of all the Yield-Max funds, they return all their capital within 2 years. I debunked that. False narrative, guys. Absolutely not true. Do you know how many funds in Yield-Max have returned all their money so that if you bought them at the open, you've gotten all your money back out of all their funds, out of 51, 57, whatever you want to count? 3. Now, it's not fair to some but how many have been there 2 years? 30, it's probably in the 30s. So they got 50 something. Probably 30 of them have been there. Let's say it's even 25. 3 out of 25, barely 10%, a little over 10%. So for somebody to say most all of the funds that have been there 2 years have returned all their money, that's debunked. You heard it here first, guys. That's baloney. That's a lie. Okay. But guess who was the best of the 3 that got their money back? Misty. People used to say NVIDIA was the GOAT. Well, it never beat Misty. Misty gave you all the money back if you bought it when it launched in 8.3 months. And it went from its launch 20 price to 40 to 45, back to, 21, back into the low 40s again. But guess what it's done now? Not only has it come back to 20 and Bitcoin's near a high, it's dropping down into the 18s. So something's wrong. The patient is sick. Okay. I'm not saying the patient's going to die. I'm just saying the patient's really sick. So my data doesn't lie. It tells the truth, right? I'm not spiffed by Yield-Max. I'm not a fanboy. I don't have to say what they want me to say. Okay. I don't need their steak dinner. I don't need their spiffs, their swag. I just call it like it is. Sorry about my rant, guys. It gets me when these people get on there and now it's Ulti. I own Ulti. Ulti's doing well. I like it. But guess what? Ulti can become Misty just like that tomorrow. Okay. So I watch it every minute, study it. It's only been 3 or 4 months that it's doing good, but it is doing good. You give credit where credit is due. Okay. But if you got all your money in there and you're going to retire on 20 years in Ulti because you're 30 and you want to retire at 50, good luck with that. Okay. My rant's over. So, guys, on the 5/1, you got some cool. Look at it. Remember, I was telling you, Biddy and Baggy are kicking booty, and who's right there with them? Roundhill. Love that. Okay. These are really kind of my 3 favorites. I just own Bitto, and I'm going to hang on to what I own because I know it. I like it. It's okay. 66%, 12% left. So you can say, well, Bruce, put your money over there. Well, maybe by the time I switch, they flip flop, but they don't go down to minus 10 here, right? So look at that. YBit is at least 36.95. You might think that's good, but not really. It's the bottom of the barrel. Everybody else is 50 to 80. So look at Maxi, 83. When I see these, I always say, what's going on? What it was is it got up into the 30s and then at this point with 5/1, it was 26.87. So it had a big, massive gain or loss of 55. Not so much that Biddy didn't do the same thing. So it's not up there as high as the results, but that's enough to cascade it up. It's one of the lower yielders of the group. You got a 26 here in Neos. You got 28 there. So I'm okay with things moving around, but I'm not okay with 4 months of negative, right? Like Misty is right now. But again, is Misty's sick, but that's because its best friend, MSTR, is dying of cancer. But maybe a magic drug's going to rescue it and it's all going to be good. I hope so. I know Bitcoin is going to do well. Let's figure out why they're not bidding MSTR up. All right. So again, 83 doesn't really matter, does it? Because it's an index. And I didn't add the other index on here, but I just showed you, look at poor MSTR. Minus 592. It doesn't pay a dividend. But it just goes to show you that Misty's paying you something. Somebody says, well, the good news is, somebody said to me the other day, well, with Yield Max, it only goes down 95% of the underlying. So it's better than owning the underlying. And I said, well, wait a minute. So is that your logic? Then if that's your logic, I should go out and buy every Yield Max stock because it's not going to go down as bad as the underlying. I thought the idea was to go out and pick funds that go up and you're bullish on it. Maybe they only have a little bit of NAV erosion because they pay massively. Then your total return is excellent. 40, 50, 60, right? 80 minus 20 is 60. 90 minus 10 is 80. Now you're talking. Now, I know that can't happen all the time and all the rest, but guys that are out there retire on Misty, give it a break. Let Misty fix Misty along with MSTR, and you can start those up. But when you're doing it in 2025 now, that's insulting to my intelligence, and you're misleading people, okay? Like I said, and then people get defensive. Boy, when I do this video last time, I'm sure I'll get a bunch of negative comments. And I'm not saying the patient's dead. I'm just saying the patient's sick. Let's hope it gets a magic drug and fixes itself. But paying $1.18 is not the answer when they didn't earn any. They'd have been better off paying 60 cents or 70 cents. But they were probably afraid of people bailing out of the fund when it's never been below $1, guys. It's a psychological thing. But are you any better? Now you're down $2. Maybe they figure people don't look at that. They only look at the payday. And guess what? They're right. I try to educate, but I can't always do it. All right, guys, I got to go. I want to get out the Yield Max Group A, which is probably the least popular, that's got Tesla and got a few others in there. That data should be coming out, and I'll get a video around the results. All right, guys, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation, and this is your evaluation to the nth degree of the current BTC funds. Again, if I miss somebody, let me know. Okay, income funds only. And again, I doubt that I missed them here. I didn't take every single one down here. And there were some that I might have missed in this, but again, this is unequal. All right, guys, I'll let you go. Have a great one. Bye for now.